John sat nervously in the waiting room of the veterinarian's office as he waited for the doctor to finish the ultrasound on his python, Jack. As one of the vets performed the procedure, his face betrayed his concern to the others gathered around. John's stomach twisted with worry as he wondered what they were seeing that made their foreheads crease into frowns. John had always been labeled as a bit of an oddball. If he wanted to tattoo most of his body, who cared? If he wanted to go crazy with piercings, that was his business. If he wanted a 7-foot-long python as a pet, who was anyone to judge? A snake was the perfect pet for John's small apartment. It didn't need much looking after, and didn't make any noise like the neighbor's yappy little dog. Jack had never caused any problems either. No one understood the special bond that John had with his pet. Jack had come into his life at just the right time, and John had taken great care of him. Some people may think it's creepy or downright terrifying to own a snake as a pet, but John had never experienced any issues. Jack had never once attempted to harm him or any of his visitors. If only his neighbors would stop nagging him with their unnecessary warnings. Recently, John had been feeling a bit lonely and decided to take his relationship with Jack to the next level. He really felt that they could bond more, and it didn't seem like his neighbor bonded very well with their dog, letting it sleep outside every night. That's when John had the idea to let Jack curl up with him in bed. It was wonderful. Jack cuddled up against him and later sprawled out across his body. Of course, he wasn't warm and furry, but his finely scaled body was comforting in its own way. The python seemed to enjoy his new sleeping arrangements, so John made it a nightly habit. From his head to his toes, Jack would slither and curl around his legs. Did he watch over John while he slept? One night, a little after 2 a.m., John woke up to an empty bed. He was so groggy, the neighbor's dog had kept him up with its incessant barking, that he immediately fell back asleep. Jack was probably on the floor. In the morning, just as he suspected, the snake was back on the bed, twirled around his legs as usual. John later prepared Jack's meal, but he didn't seem very hungry. The entire day, Jack stayed on the bed and refused to eat. He also seemed more agitated than usual, particularly when John tried moving him back to his enclosure. John wondered if he was just moody or sick. He noticed that Jack was looking a bit odd. Something was off. Was it his imagination, or had he somehow changed in size overnight? The following day, the situation remained unchanged and John was beginning to worry. He decided to take Jack to the veterinarian. There was definitely something wrong with his beloved pet. The group of vets questioned John about Jack's sudden unusual behavior as one of them began an external examination. They believed the best course of action would be to take an ultrasound of the snake's belly. Perhaps he had eaten something out of the ordinary. During the ultrasound, one vet's forehead creased into a frown and looked at the others gathered around, which made John's heart skip a beat. What were they seeing? What is that bad? One vet asked John a series of questions about the snake, including about his feeding and sleeping habits. That's when John revealed his and Jack's nightly bonding ritual. Then the vet showed him the ultrasound, and John couldn't understand what he was seeing. The snake's belly was absolutely empty. So what was the problem? The vet asked John if Jack usually sprawled out along his body and curled up around him while he lay on the bed. Well, yes, he confirmed. The vet explained that Jack had intentionally stopped eating, not because he was feeling ill, but because he was preparing to consume a large meal. Snakes often feed on animals that are way larger than themselves, thanks to their ability to unhinge their jaws. By sprawling out beside John, Jack had actually been sizing him up as his next meal. John was shocked and relieved at the same time. Relieved that Jack wasn't sick, but shocked that his beloved pet had been considering him as food. He made the decision to return Jack to his enclosure and stick to their previous sleeping arrangements. As he left the vet's office, John couldn't help but feel grateful for the close call. He also made a mental note to never take his special bond with Jack for granted again. John returned home with Jack, still in a state of shock and disbelief. He immediately placed him where he belonged, in his enclosure with its tight-fitting seal, far away from his bedroom. He still loved Jack very much, and still believed that snakes could make wonderful pets. But he knew that he needed to be more careful and responsible from now on to avoid any danger. His neighbors had been right, after all. John endured the toll you sows from those neighbors after he had told them about his close call with Jack. He was just relieved to have escaped a gruesome death. He shared his story on social media, in the hopes that other snake lovers would learn from his mistake and be more cautious about where they kept their slithering pets. It could happen to any unsuspecting snake owner. John still wondered what he would have done if Jack had begun attacking him in the middle of the night. Would he have been able to escape? How would he have felt, being turned upon by his own beloved pet? Sure, it's fine to keep a snake as a pet. They're beautiful, mysterious, and fascinating. But would you let it sleep in your bed?